a $600 million resort proposal next door to Australia's worst body corporate disaster. A major luxury resort proposal has surfaced for South Stradbroke Island, that's just off the coast of Coomera on the northern end of the Gold Coast. But right next door sits Couran Cove, one of Australia's longest running body corporate disasters. Before you get swept up in the vision, here's what property buyers and investors actually need to understand. What's been proposed for South Stradbroke Island? A group of corporate financiers led by Simon Napoli have unveiled plans for 2 developments on South Stradbroke Island, as reported by the Courier Mail. The first is a 120-room luxury resort on approximately 1 kilometre of oceanfront Crown land on the western side of the island, about 11 kilometres north of the Gold Coast Seaway. The backers, who drew inspiration from resorts in the Maldives, Florida and Europe, say the project could cost up to $500 million and would be worth around $700 million once operational. Napoli has said the ultimate vision is 200 rooms, with 120 being the minimum viable scale. Guests would arrive by ferry from Mariners Cove on the Spit, about 25 minutes, or by helicopter. Pretty cool, eh? There are already 6 ferries operating on the site, alongside 2 helipads and several docks. The second is a boutique hotel and sunset beach club on the Broadwater side, described as being modelled on a French country club. That component is estimated at $50 million to $100 million. Both sites sit on Crown land leased by Napoli's firm EDG Capital Limited. There's also a political dimension worth noting. The sites sit within the Broadwater electorate held by Premier David Crisafulli. Napoli has publicly called on Crisafulli to visit the site. He's also noted that he approached the previous Labor government for approval, but said the relevant minister wouldn't see us, and that while former Premier Stephen Miles verbally expressed support at a charity lunch, nothing came of it. There is no certainty that the project will proceed. The government would need to adjust permitted uses within the existing zones before construction could begin. Now here's where it gets interesting. The big elephant in the room, Couran Cove. Both of these proposed luxury sites sit right next to Couran Cove Island Resort. And if you haven't been following what's happening at Couran Cove, you're in for a treat, because it's arguably one of the worst body corporate disasters in Australian history. Couran Cove was built in 1998 by former Olympic runner and Gold Coast Mayor Ron Clark, backed by US philanthropist Chuck Feeney and his Inter-Pacific group. The original build reportedly came in at around $185 million, but by the time it was all said and done, Feeney reported to have poured approximately $283 million into the venture. It was designed as a world-class eco-resort with a 200-hectare footprint, a 6-hectare lagoon, and 2 kilometres of ocean frontage. Tennis courts, squash courts, golf nets, rock climbing walls, a bowls rink, the lot. Fast forward to today, the pool is full of cane toads, the building's appealing, and around 120 residents are living off the grid with no mains power, no water, and no sewerage, because it's all been disconnected since mid-2023. Now, there's an additional risk that's received less attention. Because there's no mains water supply, the fire hydrants across the resort are non-functional. The Wasp Creek Rural Fire Brigade has publicly raised alarm about the fire risk, and the Queensland Fire Department has conducted safety inspections after residents raised concerns. Following a house fire on the island, Queensland Fire Department has resorted to handing out battery-powered smoke alarms to remaining residents. When the basic utilities fail, the consequences cascade into areas you'd never expect. Guys, if you've been over there, it's pretty grim. The emergency services have literally been handing out bottled water. People are running generators to power their properties. It's pretty dark times. How did it go so wrong? The short version, body corporate disputes. Couran Cove has a complex structure involving 5 separate body corporates. Disputes over unpaid levies, infrastructure ownership, and management responsibilities spiralled into years of litigation. Essential services were cut off. Properties that would have been worth hundreds of thousands of dollars have been listed as low as $50,000 to $70,000. So grab yourself a bargain. The total problem has grown significantly. What Napoli himself describes as a $10 million problem in 2021 has since more than doubled to approximately $22 million, with over $7 million of that reported consumed by legal fees alone. Money that could have gone towards maintaining the resort's infrastructure has instead gone to the lawyers. There have been federal court proceedings and ASIC examinations. Residents have launched petitions over what's described as human rights violations, living without basic utilities for years. The Office of the Commissioner for Body Corporates has been called to intervene. Napoli himself has publicly called for the State Attorney General's office to appoint an independent administrator for Couran Cove. An independent manager could formulate the right strategy to get the services turned back on and stop all this senseless litigation, he said. And here's a detail worth noting for context. Simon Napoli, the same developer proposing the new resort, owns approximately 30 properties at Couran Cove and has been involved in the body corporate disputes. His company previously operated infrastructure services at the resort. He's also made the case that the construction of the new resort could provide infrastructure that helps solve Couran Cove's problems. An interesting pitch, and one the state government will no doubt consider carefully. We're not making any judgment calls here, but if you're an investor looking at Gold Coast Island property, you need to understand the full picture. Why this matters for Gold Coast property buyers. Couran Cove isn't just a cautionary tale about one resort. It's a masterclass in what can go wrong when body corporate structures fail miserably, and what buyers need to look for before they commit to any resort-style or island-style property in Queensland. Here's what buyers and investors should be thinking about. Body corporate disputes are non-negotiable. Before you buy in any body corporate scheme in Queensland, whether it's a resort, a high-rise apartment, or a townhouse complex, you need to understand how many body corporates are involved and how they interact. The financial health of the body corporate, so sinking fund, admin fund, outstanding levies, any current or pending disputes, litigation or adjudication orders, whether essential infrastructure is owned by the body corporate or a third party, and what the annual levies are and whether they're likely to increase. A body corporate search and records inspection before signing a contract is one of the smartest investments anyone can make. Empire Legal can obtain these for you as part of our pre-contract due diligence for buyers. We're there to make sure you are protected. All right, Crown land, number 2. This adds another layer of complexity. Both the proposed South Stradbroke developments sit on Crown land, meaning the developer holds a lease from the state government, not a freehold title. Buying property on Crown land is fundamentally different from buying freehold. Key things you need to understand. You don't own the land outright, you hold a leasehold interest. The lease will have a fixed term. In this case, the sites are on a long-term lease over 20 hectares of Crown land. There are restrictions on how the land can be used, and the government needs to approve changes. Ongoing rent is payable to the state. If the lease isn't renewed, the value of your investment can be significantly impacted, and not all Crown leases can be converted to freehold. For the proposed South Stradbroke resort, the government would reportedly need to adjust the permitted uses within the existing zones to allow the development to go ahead. That's a significant approval hurdle that's not guaranteed. And the City of Gold Coast is also running its own whole of island planning process for South Stradbroke, which adds another layer of consideration for any development in the area. Nearly there, guys. Off-the-plan resort developments carry elevated risk. We've spoken about off-the-plan risk before. There's a link to the blog with more information on off-the-plan contracts. Now, the same principle applies here, arguably more so for an island resort. The project hasn't received planning approval yet. Government zoning changes are required before it can proceed. Construction timelines on islands are inherently more complex and costly. Access, infrastructure and services are all more difficult to deliver on an island, and resort-style developments often have complex management structures that can create body corporate issues down the track. The Brisbane 2032 Olympics have been cited as a catalyst for new resort development in southeast Queensland. That may well be true, but a development timeline and a political aspiration are not the same thing. What to check before buying on an island resort? If you're considering any resort style or island property investment on the Gold Coast or anywhere else in Queensland, here's what we recommend. Get independent legal advice before you sign the contract, not after. Request a full body corporate record search, including financial statements, minutes, and any pending litigation. Understand the title structure. Is it freehold, leasehold, or a community title scheme? Review the community management statement for any unusual conditions, restrictions, or management rights. A good lawyer will help you with that. Understand your FIRB, Foreign Investment Review Board obligations if you're a foreign buyer. That applies to all residential property in Australia. And ask about the infrastructure ownership. Who owns the roads, the power systems, the water supply? At Couran Cove, that question turned out to be the most important one of all. The bigger picture, Gold Coast development is booming. South Stradbroke isn't the only luxury development making headlines on the Gold Coast. We've recently covered Trump Tower and the Versace Hotel's transition to Hilton LXR. There's clearly a wave of high-end resorts and residential developments targeting the region, driven by the 2032 Olympics, interstate migration, and international investor interest. That's exciting for the Gold Coast, but excitement doesn't replace due diligence. Every one of these developments comes with its own legal structure, risk profile, and set of buyer protections or lack thereof. The ones that look most glamorous sometimes carry the most complex legal issues underneath. Again, the cautionary tale of Couran Cove. No one would have thought that it would be a swimming pool for cane toads and basically abandoned with no power or water in 2026. Wrapping it all up, the South Stradbroke Island resort proposal is generating plenty of buzz, and fair enough. A luxury island resort 25 minutes from the Spit sounds incredible, especially with French vibes, overseas vibes. It's pretty cool. Who wouldn't want to go there, right? But as Couran Cove proves, the gap between a stunning development vision and a functioning property investment can be enormous. Body corporate structures matter, title type matters, infrastructure ownership matters, and getting the right legal advice before you sign a contract, not after, matters most of all. If you're buying or selling property in Brisbane, the Gold Coast, or anywhere in Queensland, understanding how Queensland property law applies to your transaction is critical. Whether you're a first-time buyer, investor, or someone looking at a resort-style purchase, tailored legal advice ensures costly surprises are avoided, and we can move you confidently towards settlement. Every contract is different, and local conveyancing experience matters. Thanks, guys. It'd be really, really cool to see these resorts come to life, but cautionary tale right next door. We will keep you posted with any further news on these developments. Guys, I've been to Couran Cove as a kid. We went for a school excursion, and it was a brand new eco resort. It was pumping. Have you been there? What are your comments? What are your thoughts? Should the government step in? Comment below. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next week. Ladies and gentlemen, please keep in mind that all advice is general in nature and does not constitute legal advice. This is authorised by George Souris Empire Legal, Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia.